I've seen this fellow around SRG for a long time, but I don't really know the story. So I'm excited to introduce Daran N as our speaker today.
And just like that, we're off, right? Hey, everybody. Hello, friends. I'm Daran Norris. I use my full name in these meetings and all the meetings because I'm not into the whole anonymity thing. I'm a sober alcoholic. I'm a person in recovery. Wow, I don't even know where to start. I should start with thank you. Thank you, Bridget, for asking me to do this. And thank you, Courtney, my friend, for doing so much, not just for this group, but throughout your whole life. I so enjoyed hearing your story, Courtney. It was great. And I have other people here that I've heard their stories this Monday meeting. And I'm actually kind of nervous because I want to do good. I always want to do good. I've been in the dentist chair since 8 a.m. for about a couple of hours. I had a chip in my crown. This front crown was chipped. So that was a lot of fun this morning with the Novocaine and the drilling and the removing the old crown and baking the new one and putting it in. So I'm still a little numb, but hopefully I'm not unintelligible. With more thank yous, I would say thank you for I have the wherewithal to actually take care of myself. And thank everybody here for enduring the next 45 minutes, which I won't take up nearly that long. So I guess really I wanted to talk about the history of AA. Not really, no, my history with AA. My history getting sober and not being sober and getting sober again. Because it's my story, you know, it's just the truth. And I learned how to tell the truth here. I went to my very first meeting. I was 24 years old. I was completely broke. I had been not fired, but basically the business was sold and they just, everybody was done and gone. And it was bad. It was really bad. I was flat ass broke and living in my car in Los Angeles. I lived in Los Angeles for 34 years as an actor. And anyway, my brother had gotten sober at some point, and had given me a big book. And I read the first couple of pages of the big book and I went, nope, that's not for me. Not doing that, because it mentioned the God stuff right away. But anyway, you know, my life was in such a shambles that I went anyway. And the first meeting I went to was on Chandler Boulevard. I think it was a 10 p.m. candlelight meeting. And they used actual candles back then in 1989. So I sit down and you could smoke inside the room there. And so I sit down at the table and I'm just sort of chain smoking. And then all of a sudden they read something and the lights go off and the candles are lit. And then this one guy starts talking and another guy starts talking and he's in a wheelchair and I can't understand what's happening. And I literally thought I must be in a seance. With the candles and the weirdness, I didn't know what the hell was going on. And as soon as the lights came on, I realized that I had been sitting the entire meeting at the table with a big sign that says no smoking at this table. But nobody said anything to me. Nobody gave me any grief or anything. And when the lights came on, I'm out. I boogied. And I still don't know who this gentleman was, but a guy stopped me. And he said, hey, you're new, right? And I said, yeah. And he said, well, there's another meeting tomorrow, and I'll be there. And he told me the address and he told me the time. And he said, but you should, give this a chance, And I went to that meeting and that guy wasn't there. But I stayed. And I made some really good friends. I've made some lifelong friends. Including my friend Carl, who lives in New Orleans now, and I got to stay with him. I was working there for a couple of weeks recently, and Carl was, I think, a couple years sober when I rolled in, and he stayed sober. So he's sober about 34 years now. And even though I didn't, we've been friends and we've stayed in contact ever since. And we're both from the Pacific Northwest. We're from the same county in Washington State, and met in an AA meeting in LA. Anyway, so yeah, I made some friends, and I basically lived at that clubhouse. They called it Radford Hall, or Radford. Really, it was on Radford at the time, because I was broke, and I would get there in the morning, and I would play pinochle. I learned how to play pinochle as a youngster. I would play pinochle until the noon meeting, and then eat cookies and drink coffee, and then after the noon meeting, we would play pinochle for another 2 or 3 hours, and then the next meeting would start, and I basically lived there. And I got a sponsor, and I did some of the steps and did all this stuff, and it was pretty good. And I got to hang out with my friend Carl, and anyway, I still wasn't down with any of the religious stuff, but I just sort of pretended and went along with it like you do. And then my year came up, my first anniversary came up, and I was really excited about it. I'm 25 at the time, and I'm really jazzed. So I invite some friends to come to the AA meeting to see me get my little cake. And so, and they've never been to an AA meeting, and neither of them are religious or anything. And so it's the birthday meeting, and the guy right before me gets up and takes the cake for whatever. They didn't really go in order of years or anything. And then he starts talking about Jesus. And he started to ramble on about, and for me, that's Jesus Christ, and blah, blah, blah. And I wanted to just hide. I was embarrassed because my friends were there, and now it's like, oh, this is a Jesus group, and we didn't know you were part of that, and it felt really phony. And I to this day, I guess that's maybe a resentment I still have. And I thought the room would sort of roll their eyes or not, and the room went ape shit. Everybody starts applauding and cheering and all this stuff, and I went, wow, 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 wow. Anyway, I hung around for another couple years, and I got work in, and my career took off, and I stopped going. I stopped going to AA, and I stayed sober for another 3 years, so a little over 6 years sober, and then I picked up a drink. I picked up that first drink. I was on a job in Chicago, and it was a wrap party, and I picked up a drink, and it took me 19 and a half years to get sober again. And as bad as it was at 24, and it was bad, it doesn't even compare to what it was like at 50. And I want to mention that too. I'm in the 50 club. I think, Courtney, you got sober at 50, right? And Peter as well. So I'm in great company, ladies and gentlemen. I am in some really good company here, regardless of when you got sober. I heard all the horror stories of the old guys with a glass of vodka or the bottle of vodka on the nightstand in case they woke up and they needed to get well, and all this stuff. And I was 25, I said that's crazy. I've never had anything like that. That will never happen to me. And I got there over and over and over again. I had never been to the hospital before for alcohol, and I got there over and over and over again. I got to the emergency room over and over again. And really, I've shared this before. The only thing I know about my own particular brand of alcohol addiction, alcohol use disorder, is that I just got worse. I never got better. I never got better at drinking, and I never got better at not drinking. Until about 7 years. I'll be 7 years sober July 30th. Knock on wood. And I'm committed to that. I'm committed to abstinence, and I recommit myself daily, sometimes more than once. And I don't have a problem with that being my primary purpose. My primary purpose is still not to pick up the first drink, man. Ooh, don't do it. Don't do it. I kind of lost my my train of thought there. Anyway, it was, I don't want to go through all the details, but I was getting worse and worse and worse, and things were bad. I couldn't get to work anymore. I had used up all the excuses, and the job was 5 minutes from my house, and it was about an hour and a half total of work. And I couldn't get there. I couldn't get to work, and they were going to replace me, and all this other stuff was happening. And at that point, I was really ill. I knew I was really ill, and I couldn't. It would take me through two to 4 days to get over a hangover. So if I knew I had to work on Tuesday, I would try to stop drinking on Friday or maybe Thursday. So I would be okay by the time the Tuesday rolled around. And then that, didn't work either. So I decided that the only way to avoid the hangover and avoid the withdrawal stuff was to just stay drunk. And that worked for a while. It was not pretty. And then that stopped working. And my partner, who's my husband now, decided that enough was enough, and off he went with the advice of the person who was sponsoring me at the time or trying to help me, who is still my friend and quote unquote sponsor today. Anyway, so I decided I don't know if I was suicidal. I know I didn't care. I knew I really, really did not care whether I lived or died. And there were many, many times that I would wake up from at whatever time of day, if I woke up and go, am I here still? What's happening? I don't know. Am I here? I guess I'm still here. Shit. So I guess I'll tell the tale of I was stocking up, because I'm not even smart enough to not run out of booze. I would run out of booze, and it would be really bad, really bad. It happened so many times. How did I run out of booze again? So I stocked up because I knew this is the one. I'm gonna ride this out. I'm gonna go as long as I can go. And so I went to the liquor store, my little liquor store, and I went to Vaughn's. And I lived in Burbank, Toluca Woods at the time. And I went to Rite Aid. So I was stocking up on booze. And by the time I got to Rite Aid, which is my third stop, I had the cart because I was going to, get a bunch more vodka. But I needed the cart to stand up at the time. I just needed the cart to stand up. And I remember really clearly, because there's the good stuff is sort of on the top, and the medium price stuff is in the middle, and the cheap shit is at the bottom. And I was just sort of buying a couple of good things and a bunch of the cheap shit. And it struck me, and I said, I wonder which one I'll be on when this is all over. I wonder which one it will be then when this is finally over. And then my next thought was, it doesn't matter. You won't know. You won't know. And I must have made a desperate call at whatever time, a few days later. I think it was 9 days later. All I did was drink. I think it was 9 days later. And I made the call to some friend of mine also in Washington State, and he called Ray, and Ray called Raphael, and they showed up. They showed up at the house, and I agreed to go to a treatment center. I'm still not clear a lot on the memories. I know I was walking around in my underwear and a button-down shirt saying that I wanted to go to New Mexico. I've never been to New Mexico, and I don't know why that was the plan, but that was in my head. I'm just crazy. Anyway, so I got to the rehab, and it was unpleasant, and it was not a vacation in North Hollywood there. And honestly, if it weren't for that, I'm certain that I'd be dead. I was packed up and ready to go after 11 days. I wasn't going to stay with a bunch of losers and addicts and prisoners and people trying to get their sentences cut down, and technicians and counselors who didn't know what the hell they were doing. And if Ray wasn't going to come pick me up, I was going to walk home. It was only about 3 miles from my house. And I got on the phone. I was on the phone with this person and that person. And then finally, Raphael was on the phone with me. And I was just venting, just this venom coming out about what a stupid thing this was and how I didn't belong there. And he said, okay, man, you know what, Daran, you're right. You're right. You're right about everything. You shouldn't be there. You don't belong there. They don't know what they're doing. They're incapable of helping you. You paid cash and they still want you to scrub toilets for some reason. So yeah, I get it. You shouldn't be there. You're right. But this is what you do. You run. And he had me. He had me in that, just in that minute. I was just like a light switch went off, because it was the truth. It was the truth. Finally, the truth landed on me, man. And I stayed. I spent the night there, and I stayed, and I stuck it out through the whole thing. And a lot of it was stupid. So what? And a lot of it was unnecessary or not really pertinent to me. So what? I learned a big lesson in humility at that place. And they had some grief counseling, and I had some unresolved grief that I was unaware of from high school. My best friend, Scott Stanglin, we were rehearsing a play together, and we got our rehearsal early. So we went to play pinball because he didn't have to be home yet. He had very strict parents. And then all of a sudden we're late. So he drops me off at my place, and I said, go. And then about 2 o'clock in the morning, his parents were calling because he wasn't home, and he had died. He had gone off the road and into a tree, and steering column through the torso, and he had died that night. And I'm not saying that's the reason that I, really started drinking, because I hadn't really started yet, but I'm sure it helped. And I was in this grief counseling thing, and really blaming his parents, because they were so strict. They would look at his odometer. They would really watch the clock on this guy. He was their only kid. And I blamed his parents for being so strict. And he was also religious. He had a Bible, and he had lots of, quotes and things that he had highlighted in this thing. And we talked about that, even though, even then I didn't describe to any of it. But we were best friends. I mean, attached at the hip. And I remember thinking, well, that's what that gets you. That's what that belief system gets you. It gets you dead at 16 behind the wheel. Yay. No thanks. Not doing that. And then anyway, so I was almost done in this grief group, and the man who facilitates it, and he teaches this stuff at Pepperdine, I think. Anyway, he said, "Do you want to add anything?" And I did. I said, "Yeah, it's not his parents' fault. It's my fault." And I just broke down. I just broke into pieces, and I was a wreck for like a couple of days, because I didn't know. I didn't know that I had been blaming myself for 30 some years. And I did the exercises. I wrote a letter, and then I wrote another letter, and then I wrote another letter, and I had to share those in the group and stuff. And I can't tell you how priceless that was. And I felt like I was going to be okay. I really felt like I was finally going to be okay, and I wasn't going to have to drink anymore. Wow, I'm sorry. I'm getting all worked up. And then I found some secular meetings. I went to some in-person secular meetings in LA. And I thought, well, this is a whole lot better. I can endure this. I can actually get behind this stuff. And I met some really great people there. And I kept going back to that rehab after I had completed twice a week to step study meeting. And eventually they let you take guys out to meetings and, get a carload of guys and go to the meeting and be of service and do all the stuff that I never wanted to do. The stuff I couldn't be bothered to do. Having had a spiritual awakening as the result of these steps, we try to carry this message and practice these principles. Yeah. Just show me how to stop drinking and I'll be out of your hair forever. And I was wrong. I was just wrong. I was wrong about that. I was wrong about so much stuff. And I learned that it's okay for me to be wrong. It's okay for me to make mistakes. It's okay for me to fuck up. And I learned how to make amends for that and not let that sit anymore, and not just get burned up and bitter and angry about that stuff. Because then I know that one of the things I can't afford is that repressed anger. It's not that I can't get angry. I can't shove it down anymore. I have to do something about it. And I learned that here too. I'm so amazed that I'm free from that shit. I'm just totally free from that shit. I never thought I would. I think I'm gonna stop talking. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Daran. Appreciate your share. Let me just turn a button here to get this turned off. Bridget had to run, and